Good morning. I think today's going to be a really good day. It's like 62 degrees outside, it's cloudy, slight breeze. It's Sunday, and I have Sega to play, and nostalgia waves to surf, and autumn breezes to sniff. It's going to be good. Now, I'm not here to review these games. There's already enough videos for that. I just want to visit them, and I want some company. Thank you. Thank you very much. Obviously, he goes first. These are the 4 Saturn titles I randomly picked, so let's go ahead and give them a run, shall we? Sometimes it's fun to go through your collection and pick up a title that you haven't played. For example, you were just out collecting and buying, and you say, hey, I'll grab that. You grab it, and you put it in your collection, put it in your shelf, never touch it again. And no one else did either, and that's why you never heard of it. So we'll start with Creature Shock. So I don't know whether to look at this as an homage or not, but I mean, my goodness, come on. That ship is an exact copy of the ship from 2001, A Space Odyssey. I mean, that's the USS Discovery. They basically just took a bunch of copy Discoveries and added them on as spokes to the fuselage. So, well done, guys, I guess, but that is absolutely horrible. But moving on, we can view the most boring CG intro ever placed on a disc. So, dig this. I want you to know that I'm not turning the volume down. Just dig. And here's Captain Picard over here. Have a seat, my friend. Yeah, again, except for a couple of stray sound effects, all of this is silent. I mean, even for the day when this came out, there's no excuse for this. This is really, really bad. I mean, check him out. I like how he leans his head over like, I'm deep in thought, Master. Please tell me, what's my mission? Alright, well, how about the game itself? It's your standard 3D shooter, basically. It looks like something that came out of the Atari Jaguar, or the Jaguar CD. I don't know. I mean, the music does kind of sound like Tempest 2000. But look, this is not a demo. I've played this. I'm telling you, the control is absolutely awful. I don't even really know what I'm doing. It's not responsive. The graphics just, no, they're just not there. They're done completely half-assed, totally undercooked. And except for a couple of maybe cool laser shots, you know, a couple cool colors, it's just extraordinarily boring. And this is not what the Saturn's about. This is not what the Saturn can do. I've seen far better on 32X. Heck, I think I've seen better on the Super NES. So this is a game that I haven't heard of for a reason, and I'm happy to be able to share this with you, to tell you not to buy it. I don't care how cheap it is, man. Leave this one alone. So my final opinion of Creature Shock is... Alright, enough of that. Let's move on to Space Hulk.
That's right. And for me, and all my little Space Hulkamaniacs out there...
Alright, ha-ha, very funny. But this game actually was pretty successful at going for a creepy atmosphere, something scary, something isolated. The music does a good job of that. The CG itself isn't bad. You know, there are definitely some production values in the entire intro, from everything from sound to dialogue. Even the CG itself isn't done half bad. So, you know, as a first start, as an initial impression, it works out pretty well. But for all this money they seem to have in the budget, not much of it went to actually making the game. The graphics are just reprehensible. If you've ever seen a lobotomy first-person shooter like Power Slave or Duke Nukem on the Saturn, then you know what you're missing. This is really, really bad. Moving around is difficult on its own, and trying to stay alive is even more difficult because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going, you don't know who to talk to. Now, granted, I might not know how to... Exactly. Now, admittedly, I said I don't know what I'm doing. So that should give you a few bonus points to throw the game's direction. If I knew what I was doing and I knew some background on how to play, that would make it easier. But in the meantime, just looking at it, even though it's an early Saturn title, and I know what they're after, I know what they're trying to do, and I can appreciate that, trying to play it, I mean, it just isn't working. And I can play old games all day. I never look back at a game and think to myself, oh, hey, this came out in 1989, so I'm not playing it. I never care about that kind of thing. I always put myself in the frame of mind for the year that the game came out, or how old I was when the game came out. Yeah, there's a map system, and there's some team talk, and I know they were after something kind of special and kind of cool, but I'm not reading the manual front to back for this thing. It's just too difficult to play in the first place for me to call this anything more than a forgettable title. And that's it.
I'm feeling reckless and edgy, dude. Let's play some Road Rash.
Okay, so Road Rash on the Saturn. Now, Road Rash, I'll admit, is kind of an inside joke between myself and a group of friends. Initially, this was a Panasonic 3DO title, so this is more or less a port, but it really isn't that bad if you look at the graphics and look at it from an engine point of view. Actually, sometimes it has a pretty good frame rate. The draw-in's not too bad. Some pretty good pre-rendered vehicles and things of that nature, but it just isn't the same Road Rash. It's an arcade game, to be sure, and you're not going to find a bunch of realistic effects. You're not going to find a bunch of crash effects that you would expect from something like real Road Rash, crap like that. So you got to give it leeway in that department for sure. But it's still Road Rash, it's still motorcycles, and it's still fast, right? Pretty cool, except here's a problem. This game is advertised, Dolby, double digital Dolby, all over the place, Great soundtrack from Soundgarden and the ilk. But that soundtrack doesn't exist inside the game. It only exists for like intros and menu items and things of that nature. And in the main menu, there's a credits option. That's great. I have this on time-lapse. I mean, this is a very large credit list for Road Rash on the Sega Saturn. I imagine most of it's for the soundtrack. Otherwise, it's pretty standard. You've got your menu system, bike select, goofy guys dropping in front of the camera, and then the game itself. So, hey, if you really are into collecting for Saturn, go ahead and grab it, but other than that, man, it's more like headlights in your face, to be honest with you. Now, if you were paying attention at the outset, you probably saw the best of those four titles: Space Hulk, Creature Shock, Road Rash, and Panzer Zwei. I called it Zwei for the longest time because I had no idea how to speak German, so it was like, hey, Panzer Zwei. It's actually Panzer Zwei. So let's get that right to start. Alright, now of all the video game systems that have ever been released, including all the games that have ever been released for them, there's many top 10 lists, and top 20 lists, and top 100 lists. If there were a top 25 list and I were in charge of running it, I can guarantee you that Panzer Zwei would be one of those games. Now, the original Panzer Dragoon was a launch title for the Sega Saturn. Panzer Zwei came out in 1996. I bought the import copy first because it came out before the domestic copy did. I eventually ended up having both copies. This is the domestic copy. It's the same game, but this one has English translation. Just take a look at this. I mean, look at the viewpoints. Look at the things revolving around you, and look at the frame rate. It's absolutely beautiful, and nobody had seen anything like this. This really represented the true 32-bit that we'd been waiting for on the Sega Saturn. I mean, just the color scheme, everything going on just works perfectly. Now, granted, this was a first-party Sega title. This wasn't some third-party group that really had no idea how to work those two SH2 chips or whatever Hitachi put in there. But, oh, you see that guy right there? Yes, you do fight him, and it's glorious. But one of my favorite moments of the game, when you finally take flight. Just listen. Exactly. So again, just look at this. Yes, this is a Sega Saturn running this game. Nothing else had ever been made like it. Nothing else looked like it. As a matter of fact, I think it was like rated number 2 for the year as far as games of the year goes, behind Mario 64. That should kind of tell you something. But again, I can't go on and on enough about this. Just look at it.
Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, the game had a menu system, but to hell with that. Just watch. And by all means, you're not seeing the entirety of this game. There's other levels you haven't seen, not to mention the last boss, which is one of the more memorable last bosses you'll ever encounter in any game out there. I promise. So yeah, I mean, just look at everything. The polygons, the camera angles, the depth, the textures, the scaling, the lighting. Everything just works perfectly in tandem. The amount of effort and planning that went into this game is very, very evident. And it really did help put the Sega Saturn on the map. They also did Virtua Fighter 2 and Sega Rally and a couple of others out there, but as far as, people taking a look at this and actually seeing it running, it made jaws drop back then, and it's making jaws drop now. Oh yeah, remember that big fella I told you you'd fight eventually? There he is. Yep, I should just be quiet and let you watch it. Oh, an unfriendly reminder, this is all from a console that was supposed to not be able to do 3D. Now look at this thing running and think to yourself, man, I just saw some Space Hulk. I saw some Road Rash. I saw some Creature Shock. Man, none of those come even close. All right, here's the deal. If you have a Saturn, get Panzer Zwei. If you don't have a Saturn, get Panzer Zwei. Find a way to play this. Now granted, there is a remake coming out for this pretty soon, I think. I'm pretty sure the Switch has a team working on a remake for it, but don't wait for that. Get the original Panzer Zwei, play it on your Saturn, and be shot. It's incredible stuff. Until then, or always, keep collecting.